Welcome back to your home of real English learning, where you don't simply memorize vocabulary. You experience English through stories that inspire, challenge, and transform the way you think.
English with Moses.
Take your English to the next level.
Let me ask you a question. Have you ever looked into someone's eyes and wondered what battle they were fighting inside? Have you ever smiled while carrying pain that nobody could see? Perhaps you've questioned your purpose, your fears, or the choices you've made. If you have, then today's story is for you. Because we're talking about a man who spent his entire life exploring the darkest and brightest corners of the human soul. His name was Fyodor Dostoevsky, and more than 100 years after his death, his words continue to change lives. Imagine living in 19th century Russia, a country filled with poverty, political tension, and enormous inequality. It wasn't an easy place to dream. Yet one young man believed that stories could reveal truths that ordinary conversations never could. That young man was Dostoevsky. He didn't write to entertain people. He wrote to understand them. In fact, it seemed determined to break him. As a young writer, he became involved in a group that discussed political ideas. The government considered those discussions dangerous. He was arrested, thrown into prison, and then something unimaginable happened. He was sentenced to death. Imagine standing in a cold square, waiting for the final moment of your life. The soldiers are ready. The silence is unbearable. Then, at the very last second, the execution is cancelled. Instead of death, he is sent to a prison camp in Siberia. Can you imagine surviving something like that? Most people would lose hope. But Dostoevsky found something else. He found a deeper understanding of life. Those painful years changed him forever. He met ordinary people, prisoners, workers, men filled with guilt, fear, faith, and regret. He discovered that every human being carries an invisible story, and that realization became the heart of his writing. When he returned from prison, he began creating novels unlike anything the world had seen. His characters weren't perfect heroes. They were deeply human. They doubted themselves. They made terrible mistakes. They searched desperately for meaning. Sometimes they fought against society. Sometimes they fought against themselves. Perhaps that's why his novels still feel so modern, because people haven't changed very much. Technology has changed, cities have changed, the world has changed. But the human heart still struggles with the same questions. Who am I? What is right? Can people change? Can guilt ever disappear? Can love save us? Among his greatest masterpieces is Crime and Punishment, a story that explores guilt, justice, and the heavy burden of conscience. Then comes The Brothers Karamazov, a novel filled with profound questions about family, faith, and morality. And of course, there is The Idiot, where kindness itself becomes a powerful force in a complicated world. These aren't simply novels, they're conversations about life itself. What made Dostoevsky different from so many other writers? He wasn't interested in perfect endings. He wasn't interested in easy answers. Instead, he invited readers to think, to question, to reflect. His stories remind us that every person is capable of both great kindness and great darkness, that life is rarely black and white, and that understanding others begins with understanding ourselves. His influence reaches far beyond literature. Psychologists admire his understanding of the human mind. Philosophers study his ideas. Filmmakers borrow his themes. Writers across the world continue to learn from his extraordinary storytelling. Few authors have shaped modern literature as Dostoevsky. Now, let me ask you something else. Can reading great literature help you learn English? Absolutely. When you read or listen to stories inspired by authors like Dostoevsky, you don't only learn new words, you learn emotions, ideas, different ways of expressing thoughts. You begin to understand English on a deeper level, not as a school subject, but as a language that carries wisdom, beauty, and humanity. And perhaps, that's the greatest lesson Dostoevsky leaves us. Life isn't about avoiding suffering. It's about discovering meaning through it. Our struggles don't have to define us. They can transform us. Every challenge can teach us something. Every mistake can become a lesson. And every difficult chapter can prepare us for a better one. Thank you for spending these moments with me. See you next time.